Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're venturing into some pretty wild territory, stuff that sounds almost like sci-fi, but it's based on some really fascinating ideas you listeners sent over. We're talking about memory, not just as, stored data, but maybe as actual geometry, structured by light.
Right, and not just poetically light, but potential, like literally light. It's a framework.
Exactly. The stuff you sent us, it sits right at this weird crossroads, physics, maybe some metaphysics, even healing, surprisingly.
It really does. All these threads seem to point back to this one kind of mind-bending idea. It makes you question the basics, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So, okay, our mission for this deep dive. Let's unpack this. What does it mean for memory to be light-structured geometry?
And what follows from that?
Yeah, the implications for how we see ourselves, maybe even how we heal. That's the really exciting part. Okay, let's jump in. This whole concept, light reflecting itself into reality using geometry, it sounds huge. What's the core idea?
Well, fundamentally, it's suggesting that light, which, we understand as vibration, right? Energy waves. It doesn't just float in nothingness.
Okay.
It needs a structure, something to like manifest in, to become real, so to speak. And this view says geometry is that structure.
Like the scaffolding.
Kind of, yeah. Think about EM fields. They have wave patterns, right? But those waves exist within space-time. And space-time itself, well, it has a geometric structure. Geometry comes from relationships, ratios, spin, curves, symmetry.
So it's like, yeah, okay, is the idea that the void, the darkness, has this inherent tension. And geometry is the framework that, organizes that tension.
Channels it, yeah.
And then light emerges as the expression of that. So the void isn't empty, it has shape, and light lets us perceive that shape.
Wow, that's a pretty good way to capture it. It is powerful. And it kind of leads straight into the next big question, doesn't it? What if consciousness? What if that's light becoming aware of itself?
Whoa. Okay.
Well, think about us. We're made of matter, right? And matter, deep down, it's held together by light, essentially. Electrons, protons. Some theories see them as loops of energy fields.
And our brains run on electricity, EM signals.
Exactly, bioelectricity.
Yeah.
So could our awareness or actual feeling of being here be this dynamic dance of light-based feedback loops, constantly referencing themselves?
So we might be these little pockets where light folds back on itself to perceive the very geometry it's existing in, like looking in a mirror that reflects another mirror. Forever, part of some huge cosmic feedback loop.
Precisely. The sources you shared mentioned this idea, sometimes called a web of reality. Picture light resonating through these hidden geometric patterns.
Okay.
And that resonance creates particles. Particles clump into matter. Eventually, that matter becomes self-aware, aware of itself, aware of the geometry it's part of.
So it's a cycle. Light form, mind reflection, back to light.
That's the kind of loop it suggests, yeah. A continuous process.
It feels like we're getting a peek at the universe's source code, the architecture. But hang on, why geometry? Why is there order at all? If it's just energy and randomness down there, why these beautiful patterns and rules?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Right on the edge of science and philosophy.
Yeah.
The idea here is that maybe geometry isn't something made by reality. Maybe it's the blueprint reality has to follow.
Like Plato's forms, that concept.
Exactly like that. These perfect, timeless templates. Like, you can't find a perfect circle drawn in the sand, right? But the idea of a perfect circle exists, and round things are everywhere. Planets, atoms.
So geometry is the timeless logic.
Right.
That light just naturally follows when it becomes stuff.
That connects beautifully to timelessness itself. You know how a photon, from its own viewpoint, doesn't experience time?
Yeah.
Emission and absorption are instantaneous for it?
Right. No time passes for light.
Exactly. Now think about quantum fluctuations, that constant background fizz of energy in the vacuum. Maybe that's timeless, in a way. And geometry in this picture could be like standing wave patterns that arise in that timeless background noise.
Standing waves, like on a vibrating string, everywhere.
Sort of. And light then becomes like a hologram projected through that geometric seed pattern, like shining a laser through a patterned lens and seeing a 3D image.
Okay, wow. So geometry is the structure, light animates it. Where does consciousness fit back in? You said light measuring geometry.
Yeah, that's one way it's put. It's like the feedback loop closing. Light moving through structured matter, like our brains, which are highly structured, becomes aware of the geometry it's interacting with.
So geometry builds the house, light moves in, and consciousness is the light realizing it's in the house and seeing the architecture.
That's a nice analogy, the light realizing it's both the observer and part of the observed scene. It's elegant, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, let's shift gears slightly, because the source is really zeroed in on this as, like, a master key for something personal.
Yeah.
The idea that memory isn't just, mental stuff. It's fundamentally geometry, structured by light.
Yes, that idea really jumps out because, think about it, our brains are dark inside, right? No sunlight gets in there.
Right. Totally dark.
Yet we have these incredibly vivid internal images, colors, we replay sounds, feelings, whole scenes. How? If memory is just like a computer file somewhere.
Yeah. How does that work?
Well, the explanation offered is, okay, no visible light, sure, but the brain is buzzing with electrical currents, electromagnetic fields.
Which is a form of light, just not visible.
Exactly. And when neurons fire, they create these incredibly complex geometric patterns of activation within those fields. So memory isn't a static file. It's more like a replayable shape, a geometric configuration made of these light-structured field resonances.
Okay, that makes sense of the internal imagery. But what about memory loss, like with age or brain fog?
This view offers a different angle. It's maybe not about data being deleted. It may be more about the structure breaking down, the resonance getting fuzzy, losing its coherence.
Decoherence. Like the pattern dissolving.
Precisely. Think about things that affect brain energy age, maybe mitochondrial issues, just less energy overall. That could mean weaker EM fields. Weaker fields might struggle to hold those complex geometries together. The standing wave just fades into static.
So the implications for healing, they're huge.
Absolutely. If memory is geometry structured by light, then healing isn't just about, say, changing neurotransmitters or talking things through. Those are important.
Right.
It's also about restoring energetic coherence, rebuilding or reinforcing that light-based structure in the brain, maybe even the body. Trauma, then, could it be like a scar in that geometry? A malformed pattern?
Wow. Okay. Which leads right into the next big piece.
Yeah.
Healing as reorganizing light geometry.
Exactly. If memory is these light shapes, then healing involves intentionally rearranging them, using things like intention, different forms of light, energy, coherence.
And it's not just the brain, right? The sources talked about cellular memory.
Definitely. The idea is memory isn't just locked in neurons. Maybe every cell holds some form of it in its electric field. Maybe even in the way water molecules are structured inside it, its vibrational state.
So when we get hurt physically or emotionally, the body stores that as messed up geometry.
That's the proposition. Misaligned fascia, the connective tissue, blocked energy flow, disorganized water in the cells, even trapped emotions creating like electromagnetic knots, distorted geometry.
So healing is about getting back to the original blueprint, the healthy light geometry.
Yes. And the sources talk about using not just physical light, but also conscious light, our own awareness, and subtle light, what people often call life force, prana, chi. It's like using the architect light itself to fix the building.
This makes sense of so many different healing methods now.
Yeah.
Like breath work?
Yeah. Breathwork isn't just oxygen. Energetically, it moves stagnant charge. It can literally feel like you're reshaping your inner space, creating flow.
And sound, like sound baths or chanting.
Sound waves are vibrations. They can physically reorganize patterns in fields. Think cymatics sand-making patterns on a vibrating plate. Sound could potentially rewrite harmful field patterns, retune the memory.
Somatic therapy too.
Yeah.
Feeling things in the body, moving.
Direct remapping. You're working directly with the geometry stored in tissues and energy pathways through sensation and movement.
What about energy work, like Reiki?
Could be seen as directing that subtle light, that life force, into areas where the geometric field is weak, damaged, or scrambled, intentionally restoring coherence.
And visualization, just picturing things.
Powerful. Your mind projecting new, healthy geometric forms into the memory structure. Even forgiveness. The sources describe it almost like pure light. Something that neutralizes the charge, dissolves the knots in the memory field.
It's amazing to think that chronic pain, like my friend's locked jaw, or that nagging back pain, could be frozen geometry, shaped by old trauma or beliefs.
That's the idea. Collapsed structures, and things like being present, setting an intention, moving mindfully, using sound, breath, even just feeling love, can re-illuminate those areas, nudge them back towards their healthy shape.
So the big picture. Memory is this living light field woven through us. Healing is reorganizing the light so the past stops, like hijacking the present.
Beautifully put. It's not erasing the past, it's changing its structure so it doesn't distort today.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How is this geometry actually shaped?
Yeah.
And how do we consciously repair it if it's distorted?
Well, the idea is that thoughts, experiences, emotions, they all generate EM waves. They create resonant fields around and within us.
Okay.
These waves interfere, they align, kind of like those cymatic patterns we mentioned. And when patterns repeat or are really strong,
They become stable.
exactly, they form stable, standing geometric patterns in our overall field. That's the memory being encoded. A durable shape in the field. Explains habits too, right? Repetition reinforces the structure.
And emotion's role is key here, isn't it? It's not just repetition, it's the charge.
Absolutely crucial. Emotion is like the amplifier. It adds intensity, energy, depth to the pattern being formed.
Like turning up the voltage.
Pretty much. Makes the storage stronger, the recall more vivid. A random thought might be a weak flicker, but intense joy or grief or fear, that burns a deep pattern into the geometry. That's why those big emotional moments stick with us.
And what about just paying attention and moving? How does that affect it?
Huge impact. Conscious attention is like a laser pointer for your energy. It directs focus, organizes the field tension, helps solidify those geometric shapes.
Explains why multitasking makes my memory fuzzy.
Right. Attention is scattered, but stillness, focus, that allows for cleaner, stronger encoding. Even simple things, your breathing rhythm, sounds around you, your posture, they all subtly influence how these fields organize. They're constantly shaping the geometry.
So if the geometry gets messed up, trauma, bad habits, whatever, how do we fix it? You mentioned internal light, our awareness.
Yes, that seems central. When you consciously bring awareness to an old memory, to a trauma, you're essentially shining your inner light on that specific structure.
And light organizes.
Light illuminates, it organizes, it restores coherence. That's its nature. So mindfulness, just being present with what arises, it's not passive. The act of observing with awareness brings light to those dark, fragmented patterns. It helps them become clearer, less charged. It starts to gently reshape the geometry itself.
And sound and breath again, as tools.
Yeah, they're described as carrying light frequencies in a way. Think binaural beats, chanting, humming, toning. They're projecting organized vibrations, light patterns via sound into your field. They can help entrain it back towards harmony.
And conscious breathing.
Slow, rhythmic breathing that's like creating this deep, coherent wave through your whole system. It can ripple through those geometric memory structures, sometimes bringing up forgotten things or changing how you feel about remembered things, again, reshaping the imprint.
Okay, and visualization. You call this a light rewriting tool.
Right, because your brain can make vivid images without any light coming in your eyes, yeah? That's like an inner light painter. So when you actively visualize, say, a healed version of a painful memory, or you imagine comforting your younger self in that scene, or just beam golden light into a tight spot in your body.
You're not just daydreaming.
According to this framework, no. You're using your internal light, guided by your intention, to literally remodel the encoded geometry of that memory.
Wow. Okay, so bringing it all together then.
Yeah.
The core takeaway is light creates geometry. Geometry encodes memory. And conscious light, our awareness, intention, can reshape that memory geometry.
That's the essence of it. Light is the creator, geometry is the medium, memory is the pattern, and consciousness is the editor, the healer.
It's really empowering.
Yeah.
It suggests healing is possible on so many levels at once. Electromagnetic, geometric,
No,
conscious.
it really is. It opens up a whole different way to think about memory and about our own potential for, well, transformation, deep change.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, as you go about your day, maybe just mull this over. How does this perspective shift things for you? This idea of memory as light geometry and your own awareness as a tool to reshape it. How does it change how you see your own past experiences, those memories you carry, your potential for healing, for growth? Maybe just notice, how might your focus, your intention right now, be acting like internal light, subtly shaping your own inner geometry moment by moment?
It's a deep dive that definitely continues inside each of us, doesn't it? Long after we stop talking.